Welcome to ET Now Startup Central, India's first and only daily show dedicated to startup technology and entrepreneurship. I'm Chandra Shrikant coming to you live from India's startup capital, Bengaluru, and we kick off the show with the top story of the day, which is from the Supreme Court. In a move that brings relief to a lot of people, the Supreme Court went ahead and extended the deadline for Aadhaar today from December to March. So if you've been worried about not linking your bank account, mutual funds, post office schemes, PAN card, mobile bill, the list goes on. You don't have to worry anymore because that deadline has now been extended to March 31st. Of course, beyond March 31st, if you do not if you do not link your Aadhaar, then you could lose some of those benefits, some of those services. But that is incumbent on another hearing that is going to kick off with the Supreme Court in January on the constitutional validity of Aadhaar, which basically means the Supreme Court will decide if the government is right in doing this mandatory linking to various schemes, or if it will make it optional. For more clarity on what today's verdict means, what it means for citizens like you and me, we are joined by Pranesh Prakash, someone who's read the Aadhaar Act very closely, has been following this development very closely. He joins us on the phone line. Pranesh, thank you so much for joining us on ET Now Startup Central. Take us through the development today. Was it really a surprise considering a lot of people were in panic mode over linking Aadhaar to various schemes? So the extension of deadline itself, did that really come as a surprise to you?
Not really, because even just yesterday, the government of India itself extended the deadline for many of these services. So what the Supreme Court did wasn't too much of a surprise, but how it rules in January is the real test.
Right. Take us through that real test in January. You're obviously referring to the constitutional validity of Aadhaar, that hearing which will happen in the second week of January. What is the import of that going to be?
That's going to decide on the very validity of the entire project, which has been in question since at least 2012. And more importantly, I think we've focused too much in what we're doing only at the impact of what's happening through the UIDAI, that is the UID Authority of India. We haven't focused enough through all of this at the various kinds of uses of Aadhaar at places like there are things called state resident data hubs, for instance, where also all your biometrics and all your Aadhaar link details and far more details, in fact, are collected. Things like that really ought to be questioned by journalists as well. Right now, only a small bunch of activists are looking at the concerns, privacy concerns, security concerns, etc., that are raised by things like the SRDH. Apart from that, there are simple things that can be done which are not about the law but about the technology. For instance, right now, every interaction of yours involving Aadhaar means that you have to provide someone else your Aadhaar number. But right now, the UIDAI is considering something called tokenization, which we at the Center for Internet and Society have been advocating for a long while, which means that whenever you interact with another entity which requires your Aadhaar number, instead of actually providing your Aadhaar number, UIDAI will provide you a token that is a pseudo number, which will be longer, which will be only use-specific. Now, this kind of a system already exists in countries like Austria, where they have sector-specific, what they call SS pins, which are sector-specific IDs. Now, there are very many things that can be done even outside of this court case. So we shouldn't be looking at this case as the be-all, end-all of Aadhaar and validity. In fact, we should be looking at it as the legal question being settled. There are a great number of other questions around Aadhaar and its security and privacy models, which can be settled at the tech layer, at other layers which aren't just legal.
Right. On that note, Pranesh, thank you so much for talking to ET9. We will be talking to you many more times in the coming weeks as that constitutional validity hearing, goes underway in January. But on that note, we will move to the second story on the show today, where we bring you all the action from TiECon in Delhi. It's a flagship summit of TI Delhi, where they bring together entrepreneurs from various walks of life, investors, to really discuss issues concerning entrepreneurship in startups. And ET Now's executive editor Supriya Srinivas moderated a panel this morning that spoke about a very crucial aspect of starting up and also building a startup, about scale and the various challenges one encounters in scaling a startup, whether it's the founder itself scaling along with the organization, and also scaling of the culture. She was in a conversation with Carlyle India's Neeraj Bharadwaj, InfoEdge's Sanjeev Bikhchandani, LimeRoad's Suchi Mukherjee, as well as Qualcomm's Varsha Tagari. Listen in to an excerpt of her conversation.
What is the biggest challenge that you have seen in achieving scale? And if I may actually ask you, what was most challenging about scaling up Naukri?
When you think of things, you don't really enumerate, okay, I've got 14 challenges, let me see how to overcome them. That's all hindsight, right? So if I look back and, we launched Naukri in 97, bootstrap for 3 years, raised venture capital 2000. And we got lucky, the market melted down. We raised money just before the meltdown, so we didn't have time to spend it foolishly. We just put it in the bank and said, now what do we do? So until then, we were selling through direct mail. There was no online payment gateway, and our most expensive product was 6,000 rupees a year. And we were doing 3 lakhs a month of revenue. And we said, okay, what do we do now? And we began 5 or 6 experiments. One of the experiments was, let's hire a few salespeople and let them go out into the field and sell to clients, and let's see what happens. So from direct mail, we began to put our toe in the water on field sales. And what we discovered was that the average salesperson would generate, in 3 months' time, was generating 50,000 rupees a month of sales, when the total cost, was 22,000 rupees, which is salary, conveyance, variable pay, office rent, depreciation allocated, cost of laptop allocated, all that, 22,000. So the average salesperson was now generating a 28,000 rupees surplus every month and headed north, right? And we said, hey, this is cool. Let's keep on adding salespeople till the last salesperson does not recover his or her own cost. And that's when you say market is saturated. And we moved from 0 salespeople to 230 salespersons in about 2.5 years' time across 9 offices around the country. And we broke even at 30 times the revenue we were doing before we had raised venture capital. The point I'm making is that we had discovered by accident, by experimentation, by learning by doing, a repeatable, profitable unit. So if you are addressing a large enough market, first of all, to scale, you have to have a large enough market. If you have a product that people want, then you don't have to try too hard to scale, right? And then if you discover your repeatable, profitable unit, right, that's when you can scale. So Naukri scaled because we discovered our repeatable, profitable unit. And to all startups trying to scale or hoping to scale or intending to scale, if you can discover your repeatable, profitable unit in whatever manner, right, and then you keep on scaling that, that's when you achieve scale. Now, to do all this, of course, you need the right product, you need to be in a good market, technology, people, finance, resources, everything. But find your repeatable, profitable unit.
So the mantra for you was to find the repeatable, profitable unit, and of course, it goes unsaid, you have to find a product that the market wants, that where there is demand for. Shuchi, was your experience similar in terms of finding that repeatable, profitable?
I remember the first Diwali, we just launched LimeRoad, and everybody was going crazy with these discounts and big discounts on clothing. And I'd returned from England, 17 years in England. I called up Avnish Bajaj at Matrix, who's on my board. And I said, Avnish, I just don't get this. Everybody is discounting. What do they think will happen after Diwali? And what do they think will happen during Diwali? Is every woman going to buy her entire wardrobe in Diwali? No. Is it a pan-India phenomenon? No. And then what happens in November and December and January and every other month? Can they keep discounting? No. Do you think I'm nuts? I'm not going to discount. And you know, those were some of the best decisions we made. And it came out of foolhardiness. But I think for us, our repeatable, profitable unit was the fact that we had a very simple thing. You had to make money on every trade. Every product sold at LimeRoad had to make money. And we were contribution margin positive from day one. That was important to us. And we stuck by that. Now, what did we need to do to scale? Despite that, we just need to create what we wanted to create, which is a great discovery experience for our users.
Fascinating insights on scale, and we will bring you that entire conversation sometime on Startup Central next week. Lots and lots of insights coming from investors at late stage as well as entrepreneurs. But we have to take a break at this point. Don't go anywhere. After the break, we get you the funding action for the week, who raised what. We also get you a conversation with Teabox that raised a fresh round of funding, as well as a budding star on the show, Transpin, a new startup in the digital media space. Stay tuned and come back for Startup Central. Welcome back to ED Now Startup Central, and as promised, a quick check on the funding meter for this week that we get from Venture Intelligence. Now, on the face of it, it seems to be a good week as far as funding is concerned, because for the week of December 11th, total number of VC investments was about $101 million across 14 deals. Now, perhaps there is an unusual spike because remember, this is, you know, the year end. So perhaps deals are just getting closed and announced right now. Among the top VC deals, MindTickle has raised $27 million. Veritas Finance raised $19 million, and Simility raised $17.5 million. There's been a huge spike even in the angel investments that saw 12 angel deals versus 6 last week, but we also saw an acqui-hire happening with the food delivery app Swiggy acqui-hiring QSR chain for Asian Cuisine 48 East. We are going to put the spotlight on one of the startups that raised funding this week, and that is Teabox, that raised its Series B round of funding. We have Kaushal Dugar joining us on Startup Central. Kaushal, thanks for joining us on Startup Central. Series B has come through. I guess that must be a lot of relief. But tell me something, Teabox so far has survived on the online model. You know, you source and sell premium tea through your online channel. But with everyone talking omni-channel, will offline be a huge focus for you going forward? What plans do you have in that direction?
Yes and no. So Teabox, you know, majority of our revenue still comes from outside India, US being the largest market. 40% of our revenues comes from there. So outside India, we will continue to focus on online markets, because online is going to be the growth driver. Online channels would be the growth driver, be it our own properties and experimenting with different models like subscription. However, in India, we feel that consumers still want to touch the product, taste the product, more importantly, before they get a chance to buy the product or they have the conviction to buy the product. You know, we sell teas anywhere between 10,000 to about 2 lakhs a kilo. So not fairly cheap purchase, I would say. And that's where we realized that in India, an omni-channel story or omni-channel strategy would work very well. The best part about us is that all we need to do is really get the consumers to try the product and really create the brand awareness, but try to get them to have their second and subsequent purchases on teabox.com, even if the first purchase happens on whichever channel, whichever offline channel they would have tried. And that way, omni-channel would work very much in our favor. So yes, omni-channel will be a part of our growth strategy, at least where the Indian market is concerned.
Kaushal, we also noticed that, so far your growth has been driven by export markets and not so much India. Is that going to be the trend going forward? Is there some reason why export markets tend to do better for you vis-a-vis the domestic market, which is seen as a tea drinking market? So is that going to be the mix for you going forward?
So export, the kind of product which we deal in, especially premium teas, have always been exported outside India. India, unfortunately or fortunately, is a chai drinking country, which is a concoction of milk, sugar and water. Pure teas, or the kind of teas we deal with, is literally supposed to be drunk only with water. And that has always been exported outside India. So outside India has been a natural market for us. All what we are doing is we are substituting the last player or one of the competitors from whom the consumers are buying, and that's been fairly our strategy there. We feel that outside or export markets would continue to be dominant in terms of our growth strategy. However, India is also rising, but it doesn't look like India will be any point of time a significant revenue contributor to us, at least not in the first or not in the next 2 years.
Finally, Kaushal, monetization is clearly going to be a big challenge. Can you continue to do that being a standalone niche player? Because, we're seeing consolidation happening all around. What's your own take on Teabox's plans going forward?
Chandra, to be very frank, I think the way we look at the opportunities is there is a massive market. India alone exports about $4 billion worth of tea, especially when it comes to the consumer. They end up paying $4 billion worth of tea. So at this point of time, what we believe in as a company is just continue to focus on the opportunities which we have. We are probably not even scratching the surface at this point of time. However, in the near future, we are always open to collaborations, always open to strategic partnerships. Some of those talks are also underway as well. We don't intend to acquire anyone, we don't intend to sell to anyone, we intend to make Teabox hopefully India's first premium global brand.
On that note, I'm afraid we are completely out of time in this edition of ET Now Startup Central, but the story we promised today, I'm afraid we'll have to slot it next week, all about Transfin. But on that note, thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned to ET Now for news and updates.